Maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
All right. Hi, beautiful people. All right. Is my internet acting up? Oh, is it here? Let me see. Hold on. Okay, there we go. My internet's back. Hi, beautiful people. So if you've never been in here before, you're watching me on a replay. Thank you so much for watching me. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I come on, I talk to people who are doing things to empower the lives of others by sharing their story. And the whole goal behind me coming on here is to just help you shift the way you think. And I've been able to do that over the last couple of years where I'm talking to people. This episode is a little bit differently. I don't typically come on in the middle of the day, but so much has happened recently that has caught my attention, and I really wanted to kind of talk about and have dialogue about what I've seen. And then I brought on a special guest to kind of help me do that. So I'm going to add him to the stream so that he can introduce himself to you all. Hello. Can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Murat Erkan. I'm an attorney in Andover, Massachusetts.
How are you doing today?
Awesome.
Good. So the reason why I asked Attorney Erkan to come on is because I seen some things take place with somebody that I've worked well with, and it was very disturbing. So I wanted to kind of talk about it and help us understand what we can do to support and help, and also kind of help us understand our rights. I think with the state of the way America has been going, so many people feel powerless. And I believe that when we educate ourselves, we can learn how to do things a little bit differently and not just stay stuck in the fact that it does suck. A lot of things suck. So I'm going to start with the video that caught my attention, and then I'm going to read a letter from Attorney Erkan that he put out, and then we're going to have a conversation. You are so welcome. I'm going to share my screen with the people. And I wanted to use my platform to, to help other people who may have gone through this and maybe going through this as well. So let's just share my screen so you guys can kind of see. And for my listeners, if you go to my Instagram account, you can kind of see the visuals of this. All right, so I'm going to share this. Let me turn the volume on.
Being investigated for assault battery right now, okay?
Yeah. Are you serious? Are you serious?
What I heard was that you hit a woman.
You didn't hear something. You have to see it. How are you going to do your job and say I didn't see it? I heard it. I heard it.
I don't know what's going on.
All right, so what we just seen on video was the victim who was arrested having water splashed on him after dancing, and the officer arresting him because of something he heard. And so I'm going to read this letter from Attorney Erkan's office, a press release called "You Are Not America." 32-year-old Ernst Jean-Jacques of Haverhill appeared before the Lynn District Court today for an arraignment on a single charge of assault and battery on an elderly woman in connection with an incident which occurred during a pro-Trump MAGA Massachusetts rally and a counter-protest on December 12th in Swampscott. An application for complaint filed by Swampscott police alleged that Jean-Jacques punched 80-year-old Linda Greenberg of Swampscott, who is actually the assailant. Contrary to the complaint application, video evidence and witness statements presented at today's hearing established that Jean-Jacques was among a group of counter-protesters. As Jean-Jacques, who is Black, danced to the music pro-Trump demonstrators played, Greenberg, who is the assailant and also white, walked over to get a bottle, walked back to Jean-Jacques, then threw a large amount of water at him. Jean-Jacques attempted to take the bottle from Greenberg, at which point various Trump supporters demanded that police arrest Jean-Jacques, claiming that he punched her. In an interview with police, which bystanders recorded, Greenberg stated, "I was drinking my water and he was gyrating in front of me and I was getting mad. I did get water on him. I don't want to lie." So when a bystander asked her if she agreed that her conduct made her an aggressor, she responded, "Oh, why don't you fuck off? You are not America. You are not America." According to police reports, Officer Brendan Reen, who was watching the live stream of the rally posted by Trump activist Diana Ploss, observed water propel from where Greenberg was standing, following which Jean-Jacques responded by punching Greenberg with his right fist. Officer Cassidy similarly reported that he also observed Jean-Jacques clench and close his fist, then wind it with an extreme amount of force and throw a punch. The video, which was played in court, established that Greenberg actually threw the water at Jean-Jacques. However, contrary to Officer Cassidy and Reen, it did not show Jean-Jacques punching her. The video, together with still images which depict the incident from a different angle, shows Jean-Jacques with an open hand attempting to disarm Greenberg of the bottle. Mr. Jean-Jacques, who has no record of conviction, works at a senior center care for adults with intellectual disabilities and actively participates in community betterment activities, including clothing, food, and toy drives. A large amount of his supporters attended the arraignment. At the arraignment, the prosecutor filed a motion requesting that the court find Jean-Jacques to be a danger to the community and order that a $500 cash bill remain in place, that Jean-Jacques have no contact with any person over 70, and that he is banished from the town of Swampscott. Attorney Murat Erkan, principal of Andover-based Erkan and Associates, appeared pro bono on behalf of Mr. Jean-Jacques, together with law clerk Amelia and associate of D. Eric Bernadette. At the hearing, Doherty asked the court to accept a face value Greenberg's claim that water propelled onto Jean-Jacques from Greenberg's bottle as a result of essential tremors disorder. Notwithstanding video evidence and eyewitness accounts which suggest that her assault was premeditated and that she aimed a large plum of water at Jean-Jacques, who was approximately 3 to 4 feet away. Attorney Erkan stated he felt ashamed at the prosecutor for making the request. Attorney Erkan related that he arrived at court expecting that the prosecutor would dismiss the charge prior to arraignment and join his request that Greenberg be charged with violating Jean-Jacques' civil rights, and was saddened when the prosecutor not only declined but requested that the court find Jean-Jacques to be a danger to the community. Attorney Erkan pointed out that despite video evidence that depicted Greenberg assaulting Jean-Jacques in her confession to doing so, police neglected to charge her, instead choosing to charge Jean-Jacques, who's the victim, for disarming her. Attorney Erkan admonished the prosecutor for decision to perpetrate the nation's storied history of endorsing the story of a white woman over a young Black male. He evoked images of 1963 Birmingham, Alabama, where police sprayed water on peaceful Black protesters seeking acknowledgement of their civil rights. He emphasized that Greenberg's spray water on Jean-Jacques dehumanized him in the same manner. He pointed out that by protecting her behavior, prosecutors and police demonstrated that 60 years after Birmingham, lessons of our painful past has not been learned. Although Judge Matthew Nestor disagreed with the analogy, he agreed that the case was disturbing, rejected the prosecutor's request to declare Jean-Jacques a dangerous person, and sided with the prosecutor for requesting that Jean-Jacques be banished from Swampscott and prohibited prohibited him from contact with elderly persons. The court set the matter for pretrial hearing on February 24th, 2021. No live witnesses were presented at the hearing. Attorney Erkan related that he earlier intended to present the testimony of 2 eyewitnesses, but decided not to after the prosecutor indicted she would request the hearing be postponed and that Jean-Jacques be jailed in the interim. Attorney Erkan indicated that he was speaking with the authorities and expected to request that Greenberg be charged for her hate crime. And so there we have it. I think that when I read this letter, a lot of anger comes over me from reading it. What was it like for you being in the courtroom? You were like, oh, this is a open and shut case. They're going to drop the charges. Like, there's no evidence. There's actually evidence that the so-called victim is actually the person that assaulted. What was that like for you walking into that courtroom and hearing all this?
What a good question. It's difficult really to capture in words the experience of appearing in court on behalf of Ernst Jean-Jacques with respect to this matter. In a lot of ways, I'm greatly saddened that I find myself in the position in the year 2020 defending somebody who is wrongfully accused of a crime, which accusation, in my view, was motivated by decades and really centuries of an American history of racial oppression, and that these same hateful and shameful mindsets appear to be operating to this very day, even in a court of law, even in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I think is considered by many to be a liberal state, a state which pioneers in civil liberties, and a state of high thinking. None of that seemed to change the series of events as they unfolded in court that day. And it was extraordinarily disturbing. It was really saddening, and it was really scary. I've been practicing for almost a quarter of a century, and I've seen a lot of things, as you can imagine, practicing solely criminal law for the entirety of my career. Even when I was in law school and interning, I was interning with the DA's office. I then went into the DA's office as soon as I passed the bar in January of 1998, and I prosecuted a lot of cases in Essex County in that very courthouse and throughout the county, in Lawrence. So as you can imagine, I've seen a lot. I've been on the defense side since the year 2006. I've seen a lot of terrible things happen. This will be memorable. This case will be memorable as one of the most disappointing and tragic court events that I've ever seen. And it was hard, and I certainly entered the court, as I always do, with a optimism that justice will prevail, that people will act with the strength of conviction for what is right. I hope that would be the case, and I have to say that the opposite occurred, and it truly was a dark day for justice in the Commonwealth, in my view.
You call it a dark day for justice, and you say that because according to the law, what is written, it sounds like what happened in court is not what was written in law. Is that fair to say?
So the procedure by which the government moved was technically correct and lawful. Unfortunately, the legislature has granted the prosecutors broad discretion to choose who they will determine to be a dangerous person and to request that the court endorse that label, and can then, on that basis, request that the person be locked up pre-trial until the time that they have their trial in the case. So all of it was technically lawful. So I don't necessarily take the position that the letter of the law was broken. the spirit of the law and the conscience of the law were the true victims in court that day.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I think about, I've been on this, ever since I watched George Floyd's, what took place with him and so many other people we've seen recently. I always think about how many were not filmed, right? And so in this case, without any film, it would have been easy for people to just assume one thing, right? And so now we have this film that's happening and nothing still happens. How often, as a criminal attorney, how often have you seen someone have these charges and say that this didn't happen? When it was the police word against the persons, how often does that happen without video?
Sure. Let me say this. I'm very grateful that there was video, but I think that to your point, it really is quite remarkable that even in the face of what I would consider to be overwhelming evidence of what happened, the process's reluctance to see the truth, to acknowledge what actually happened, and to change course. Look, you saw the video, and there's a lot of other videos and statements that are circulating around regarding this incident. It's a fact-rich case. We know what happened, and it is quite frankly indisputable what happened. And yet, regardless of that, the machinery of the court couldn't stop, and the prosecutor maintained her position to seek these charges against Mr. Jean-Jacques and seek an order of dangerousness against him. So it really is remarkable that, if you can imagine, we have all this evidence. Nobody cares because it doesn't support their narrative. It doesn't support the narrative that has filled our courthouses for years and decades and centuries, and that is the false narrative of the black aggressor and the innocent white victim. Even when what this shows is we have a long way to go, because even when the evidence is there, the court, law enforcement, and the courts seem to struggle with grappling with that and accepting the truth.
Yeah.
It's going to be the case.
And that's a pretty scary thing. And this is something that, I seen and I wanted to kind of share about, but I think about all the other people that are, that may have encountered something like this, and how do we navigate this world when so much is stacked against us? Like, how does one do that? Like, how do we protect ourselves? Because in your letter, you talk about all of these violations that are currently stacked against him. He was let go from his job recently, right? And there's an admission of guilt, right? That's the part that drives me.
There's an admission of guilt on video.
That's the part that drives me crazy.
Yeah, the Miss Greenberg, literally, I mean, as if she was in law school, outlining the elements of the crime that she committed. She disapproved of his dancing, which is a form of protected speech, by the way, under the law. It made her angry, and so she acted with force against him. And those are the elements of a civil rights violation.
Literally,
right there. But what was the response of the police officer? That was on video as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm interviewing a victim here.
Right after she confessed.
And of
right
course,
after she confessed.
Yeah, right after she confessed. I mean, apparently the concept of Miss Greenberg being anything but a victim vis-a-vis an allegation against a black man was unfathomable to the officer that was responding there on scene. And it remains unfathomable to, unfortunately, far too many police officers and prosecutors that dominate within the legal system right now. And how do we stop that? How do we stop that is your question. We stop that by showing up, just like Ernst did. He showed up with a group of like-minded, peaceful protesters, and let it be known that there is an alternative narrative out there, a truthful narrative based on facts and evidence. A narrative which is buoyed by a sense of moral correctness, arises from the recognition that all people are equal and all people are deserving of respect and human rights. We must show up and we must make our positions known. And you know what else we must do? Wear a camera. Wear a camera.
How can we always have a camera with us? I mean, even with the camera, but how do we always do that?
Yeah,
you see the person recording, right? This is one thing I wanted to ask you as a lawyer. The police officer was allegedly interviewing an alleged victim, which she stated she's not a victim in her statement, but she says you cannot record me because I'm interviewing a victim. Shouldn't she have walked away to interview her? Wasn't the person recording not obstructing the interview?
The U.S. Constitution forbids that level of restriction on the public's right to demand accountability of police. And I think just last week, the First Circuit Court for the United States District Court struck down so much of the Massachusetts Wiretap Law, which prohibited the surreptitious or secret recording of government actors in public. And so to the extent that the officer attempted to suggest that it was unlawful to record, her actions were unlawful in discouraging the recording. Whoever it is that was recording had the absolute right to record. They have an absolute right to record secretly. And I certainly suggest that any individual who will be participating in a public rally, which may escalate it, as unfortunately this one did, to have their phone with them and active and on, filming what it is that they're seeing and doing at the moment that they're doing it. Even better, having a body-worn camera that they can wear that shows exactly what it is they're doing and saying from their perspective. Because one of the great obstacles to truth is the lack of camera angles, which show everything that happened here. And from what is not seen, the creative imaginations of those who take a different position take seed, and they create this false narrative of Mr. Jean-Jacques punching this woman. Well, all he was doing was disarming her from continuing to assault him.
Yeah. And even like Sage is saying, and on YouTube, there's an angle of her, the alleged victim, literally going to wave her flag in someone's face that's walking by. It's as if she was angry, and when I get angry, I'm human. You get angry, right? We all get angry, but I feel like it doesn't get
that happened with me. But go ahead.
Oh, I feel like I feel like it's up to me as an adult to control my emotions. She had every right to feel angry. It's her right. She's, as a human being, she did not have a right to assault someone because of how she was feeling,
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage everybody to examine the publicly available footage and what was admitted at court. Also, what's in the public domain in terms of what you've shared and other outlets have at their disposal, and form their own opinions regarding her state of mind and intentions in this event. But I concur that there is video which demonstrates that she is intentionally touching other people with her flag, just in an act that I consider to be contemptuous toward them, just to kind of like draw a reaction or to demonstrate her disdain for them, her contempt for them. I know there's another video of her pushing somebody else, but again, the video angle is not sufficient to show the true object of her pushing, and so that allows her fertile ground to create whatever narrative that she chooses to create. But in mosaic, all of the videos clearly, in my view, permit an inference that she did not have the best of intentions on this day, nor does she have much regard for other opinions.
In your opinion, of being an attorney for over 20 years, how much does the public opinion or play a role in people's case? I just learned that he was let go without pay after just being charged with a crime, not being found guilty of a crime. So, you know, and this is a lot of people's story where they lose their job and, you know, but how much do you think when I say public opinion, now we have all these opinions and, you know, I think the media does, unfortunately, a really bad job. His mugshot is plastered on a screen along with these words, punched an 80-year-old woman. Of course, like, why wouldn't I be mad if I see a young guy maybe punch somebody that could have been my grandmother, right? How much do you think that plays a role in the way that the case plays out for people?
Sure. I think that the more the public shows up and the more that the public expresses its opinion and engages in public debate about these things that happen, the more attention that is drawn to these matters. If nobody shows that they care, it doesn't inspire others to care. So conversely, we must show that we care so that we can, you know, help others to perceive what it is that's happening here. The press reaction in this case was abysmal, in my opinion. The first article that was published in this case was by the Lynn item, and I'm not certain if you're aware, but the Lynn item made no reference to the fact that the woman was seen on video throwing water on Mr. Ernst Jean-Jacques. And that wasn't mentioned at all in the report. It was presented as if it was a unprovoked, unilateral attack by a young black man on an elderly white woman, which was known to be false at the time the statement was made. And might I add that they also published Mr. Jean-Jacques' personal address in the in our view, placing him at great risk. To the Lynn item's credit, after we demanded that their article be corrected, they did present a somewhat more balanced perspective of what occurred and retracted the publication of Mr. Jean-Jacques' address. The media coverage, in my view, has been there's a lot of room for improvement there. Let me put it that way. And luckily for Mr. Jean-Jacques, he has the assistance of a wealth of supporters. He has the assistance of an attorney to help him navigate this process. Not everybody has that. And so I can only imagine how many stories have been told in this sort of one-sided, lopsided narrative, not just in the press, but in the court, and maybe even in the record of an unjust conviction.
Yeah.
The more that we all become involved and peacefully express our protest to it.
So, and speaking of being involved, because and I just want to make another point. Prior to the lady throwing the water at him, it honestly looked like the other ladies was enjoying the dance with him. It looks like everyone was smiling. It looked like everyone was fine. Even though they were on opposite ends of their political views, it really just looked like people were enjoying themselves. Did you get that sense too?
You know, having observed the video in its entirety of the live stream, and I think it's over 2.5 hours, I wouldn't characterize the pro-Trump, anti-Baker, anti-BLM supporters to be in any way in sync or empathetic to the cause or enjoyment of the BLM supporters or Jean-Jacques and his friends. I think they whatever enjoyment they have was more in the sense of the enjoyment of mocking somebody more than anything else. That's the way I perceive the reaction. Although the live stream I think might still be available, and you all can form your own opinions regarding that.
That makes sense. Now, speaking of showing up and kind of what we can do, because for people that aren't aware of how the criminal system works, if the prosecution looked at the evidence and arrested the actual person that assaulted him, there wouldn't be a pretrial hearing. So after an arraignment, a pretrial hearing is typically set if the prosecution is going to move forward with the case. Is that how it works?
So yeah, that's a great question, and I hope I'm going to be able to answer it without boring you to tears. But just in terms of the criminal process in general, in a criminal complaint in most instances is filed, and that's what initiates the process. the complaint is filed by again, in most instances, a police department that is then furnished to the district attorney's office, who then reviews the criminal complaint and the circumstances of the crime charged. And the district attorney's office will then elect to proceed with an arraignment of the case. And that's what happens with, I would say, probably, 100% of cases, or something very close to that, is that they would simply, take the police statement and support the prosecution. And I think that, it's really not, in the ordinary course, their function or to screen the merits of the case beyond looking at it at face value, but it is certainly within their the scope of their duty to review the merits of the case. When there's something that's there, call it into question, and maybe hold off on the arraignment and conduct some sort of an investigation prior to staining somebody with a record of a criminal charge. And certainly in an instance where the defense is disclosing a vast array of uncontrovertible evidence establishing that the factual basis of the charge is in question, and perhaps even suggesting that the person charged is the true victim, I think that it will be incumbent upon a prosecutor as a minister of justice to at least pump the brakes at that stage and say, let me take a look at this before, we draw battle lines. That's not what occurred here, though. The prosecutor moved forward with the arraignment, but more than that, then sought to have Mr. Jean-Jacques declared a dangerous person. I should note that we actually had intended to present the testimony of live witnesses at this hearing, by the way, in court on Monday, but we backed off of that because the district attorney had threatened that she would request a continuance of the hearing and demand that Mr. Jean-Jacques be jailed until the resolution of the hearing, at least. And so she certainly chilled our ability to call any witnesses at that stage with that threat.
Sorry, I'm confused. So you're saying that you had witnesses that would testify on his behalf, but prosecution said, if you bring those witnesses, we're going to ask him to stay jailed?
Correct. They were going to ask for a further court date, during which time Mr. Jean-Jacques would be held in custody until that court date had occurred. So those witnesses were effectively silenced by that choice.
Oh, I don't know if I.
Hi, Celeste. I don't know if you can hear me.
Can you see me okay?
I can see you now, yes. I mean, I've always seen you.
Now
but,
I can hear you.
You were paused. Okay. So I don't know how much of that answer you were able to hear.
No, I heard most of it. Is that considered like suppressing? Is that the prosecution trying to suppress that? I'm confused. I didn't know that can happen.
So that is a feature of the of General Law, Chapter 276, Section 58A, which is the so-called Dangerousness Statute that allows the prosecutor to request a continuance of a short duration of a detention hearing, and that is appropriate in circumstances where further investigation is warranted or additional evidence can't be conveniently presented to the court, or other good cause exists, at that stage. I don't want to go so far as to state that the prosecutor intentionally suppressed evidence, but it certainly did have that, consequence, whether it was intended or not. Her indication that she would seek our client's detention if we presented witnesses caused us to not present those witnesses. Does that make sense?
Wow, it makes 100% sense. So, so he could have been in jail until his pretrial hearing.
He could have been in jail for the continuance period, which would have been much shorter than that. I think that the statute simply allows the prosecutor to request 3 days at maximum. But I don't know.
One day is a lot.
3 minutes in jail, let alone 3 days.
Right. Oh my God.
Particularly as an innocent person, So it certainly, with all of that on the table, it certainly took a lot of courage for Ernst to, not try to strike a deal with the prosecutor, which I think in those circumstances is very tempting, in the face of unjust imprisonment, to avoid that. Many people will forfeit their rights. Ernst didn't. Ernst stood up for his rights, and that's why I think that he is the hero that he is. But
Yeah, I know.
in terms of the process, and to follow up on your question, the pretrial hearing is the event established by court rules that occurs after an arraignment. And at that stage, information is exchanged between the prosecutor and the defense, and further court dates are then set. There's no sort of like requirement as to what has to happen at the pretrial conference, other than that conversation and the disclosure of certain evidence that the prosecutor is required to provide by law. But in terms of do they have to make their decision by then, or what they're going to do with the case? No, I mean, they could decide to dismiss the case yesterday, or 9 months from now. They could decide to press charges against Ms. Greenberg, the aggressor, at any time. None of it is really contingent on the next court date. I certainly hope that a decision will be made to look at this case from a more evidence-based perspective and from a perspective of justice, and make the decision to stand strongly against these unsupported allegations against Mr. Jean-Jacques, and to pursue the individual who acted from a position of hate to suppress the civil rights of Ernst.
Wow, I'm with you, Kimberly. Kimberly's like, how is this even legal? I know. And I just think about how many other people that have gone through this and have had to take a plea. The thought of just being just the idea of being handcuffed alone, not even getting into the car, is very traumatizing for people to have to go through, and so many people go through it. So how is it that we can support him? Like, what can we do? Because I think a lot of people, one way we can support him for people that, he did lose his job. There's a GoFundMe. Initially, people were like, how can I support? And now he does not have a job. And you can support him through the GoFundMe. That would be great. But how else can we support him and kind of dismantling the system and try to show up so that people know that we do care and we want to see justice prevail?
Right. I think that I would be reluctant to sort of like substitute my judgment for that of activists such as Ernst. But if I might just provide my sort of like my 2 cents on this. I think that the best thing that we can do to support Ernst is to honor his message and his bravery in standing to deliver that message in most hostile circumstances. The more that we show up and say what it is that we believe, the more people are going to know about our position, and the more hearts and minds that we might be able to reach. It's my view that it's important to always, in the context of protest, always have a message, a clear message that is understood and agreed to by all the participants, and to ask, in delivering that message, how does my current action advance the message that I seek to deliver? Presence alone is 90% of the way there. Messaging is important. The consistency of messaging is important. The moral high ground is important. The strength and fiber to stand in the face of hate and oppression, and to not be reduced to the lowest common denominator, I think is really what wins hearts and minds. When it's so natural and it's the most human thing in the world to respond to hate and anger by being hateful and angry as well. But what happens there is that we are then reduced by those we oppose. It is in our lowest moments that we provide the talking points for the other side. And I think it's important to avoid providing them with any talking points whatsoever. The more that we can engage in fact-based and reasonable dialogue, the more that we will have an effective message that reaches the hearts and minds of the America that's willing to listen. And I think that America is willing to listen. I think that the journey is slow. The journey is hastened by people like Ernst, who are willing to get out there and speak and to show up and to share their thoughts. But I think that the message will be received. The more that we can establish the strength of our message and the unsupported nature of the opposition view, the more likely we are to see change, in my humble opinion.
All right, that's a great opinion, Attorney Erkan. I love it. Yeah, this was good. I agree with you 100%. I think Michelle Obama said it best: when they go low, we go high. And really trying to make sure we're doing the best that we can, but we're not allowing our emotions to cloud our judgment in our response. And I did a little bit of that on social media the other day, and then that's when I reached out to you.
Well, I'm so glad we had a chance to talk.
I said, you know what? Let me just talk to Attorney Erkan so he can help us out, because this is not right. So, yeah, you helped me out a lot. This is great. And your words of encouragement around, the things we can do, and just, in general, how to keep ourselves safe if we are gonna, do any protest. And the camera thing makes so much sense, even though we're not seeing it work out well right now. But I think you're confident and optimistic that justice will prevail, despite what we are seeing in front of us.
I'm going to make sure that happens. I have no doubt of it.
I know you got this. We're counting on you.
and then some. Just on the subject of what we can do to protect ourselves in this process as well. Allow me to just say a couple of things. Sometimes when we find ourselves voicing our views, others don't agree with our views, including others in positions of power, and it's highly important to comply respectfully with any show of lawful authority. And so to comply with the arrest process, if an arrest is what's necessary. These disputes will never be won with the police on the street. They will only be won in a court of law. So my advice is comply with police in the event of an arrest, and then then let your voice be heard in the public forum, and then in a court of law. And I want to just say one last thing, and from my experience of almost 25 years in the business. People are good. People are generally good. There are good Trump supporters. There are a lot of good people who oppose Trump. There are good police officers. Most of them are good. There are good prosecutors and good judges, and most of them are good as well. So the more that we appeal to the good in others, I think the more that we're going to see the change that we want. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I have friends that are police officers, and I just think the systems are broken, and I think that's the problem, is that a lot of the systems are broken. And the lady who took the older lady's statement, she probably felt like she was talking to her grandmother, the countertransference, right? So I think that there's too much that.
I'm with you.
Oh, that's my internet. Say that again, Attorney Erkan. I didn't hear you. Say that one more time.
Well, I mean, I just said if the police officer thought that was her grandmother, I wouldn't want to eat that grandmother's cookies anytime soon.
No. But I do agree. I think there are good people. I don't think people are born to be this way. I wouldn't be doing the work that I do if I didn't believe in that. And I think that the complying piece, is important. And as we've seen in the pictures, and Ernst complied, thank goodness, because that would have been an easy an easy thing to add on to like, look at him, he's not compliant, he must have hit her. So I think your advice to us is important and needed when so much of our emotions could be going off at this time. So I'm very grateful to you. And as Sage says, court support February 24th, 2021. We can at least show him support for Shimmy. And even though she says it's not going to get him off, but according to Attorney Erkan, the prosecution can still not allow that hearing to go on and release the charges, right? Is that fair? Is that's
absolutely correct? And the more that we, generate public knowledge of this incident, the more likely that is to occur, quite frankly. So please do show up and support Ernst in this case.
Well, let's hope for that to happen, and we won't even have to show up on February 24th.
I certainly hope so. And
hold on, my internet's doing something. I'm sure everyone can see you. Oh, there it goes. It's back. Okay. Are there any last words you want to say? Was that hard on you, Attorney Erkan? Was that well, actually, you go in front of judges and prosecutions. I have nothing compared to them, right?
Well, no, but this might be one of the most engaging conversations I've had in a while. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so welcome. Is there?
What we do, Celeste. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else you want to add to the to my audience knowledge, or you feel like you've said it all?
No, I mean I feel like I've said it all. I just want to reinforce that not just for Ernst, but for whenever you know somebody who is struggling with the system and the court process, your presence can be highly influential. Just show up in court. And let the court know that the accused person has people that care about him, and that will cause the court to care as well. It'll raise the importance of the case in the court's view, in my mind. So the more that we show up for each other, the more that we can accomplish. And I'm just very proud of Ernst, and I'm very proud of all the people who go out there every day and risk their life and their freedom to support the causes of democracy and justice. So all of them should be saluted.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Was this your first podcast?
It was. Did I do okay?
You did amazing. Now I can send you off to do more.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and and I appreciate you educating us. I've learned a lot, and I feel empowered. So
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye. That was awesome. So that was his attorney, and I'm grateful. I reached out to him. Oh, thank you, Sage. Yeah, and he did great. So I reached out to him, and he responded. I was so excited. This is like one of the most exciting interviews I've ever done, and this is the 270th episode. So it says a lot, and I think about people like Ernst who go out and for the cause, and people like him is how a lot of laws have been changed, and things have been moved forward, and so I've read a lot about what happens to people like him, and in the past, and just kind of seeing it unfold in real time. I was thinking, like, what can I do? I can't respond to people that like on social media, like, how can I do this? And I read the letter, and then I said, and then I seen Attorney Erkan's name, and I went to Google and I found him, and he said yes. So I'm so excited that he did that. So remember, like, how you can support the cause. We could show up February 24th. Unless they drop the charges, that would be amazing. And also, he has a GoFundMe account where that can help support his bills. And, he doesn't have a job. Unfortunately, it seems like they've counted him guilty before being innocent, with all the mountain of evidence out there. So that's how we can support him. How you can support yourself if you are going to be protesting and doing things to support causes. Have your camera charged up, have an extra battery. I think his information is spot on about making sure that we record and protect ourselves. I know it seems like, well, what's the point? Look at what he's going through right now. It seems like, what's the point? Like, what is he, look at what he's going through right now. But as the attorney said, like he's going to continue fighting, and he's, we're optimistic that justice is going to happen. And so the court is it in Lynn? Is Sage, are you still here? I want to say Lynn District Court. I should have, somebody who's watching, can you tell me what court it is so I can say it? Show up in court. I called, they took my message, and so it may feel like, what's the point in calling, or what's the point in doing this? I feel like everything matters. I feel like everything that we do towards the cause matters, even though if it feels like it doesn't. It's kind of like a tree, you plant a tree, you put a seed down, and then you add water, and then sun, you watch it grow. You watch it grow, and eventually it's a tree. It took a lot of work for it to get there. So even though I understand how taxing it could be, and how hard it can be, even if you just made that one call, like, know that you're doing your part. And I know there's so much work to be done. I've been in the mental health field since I was 19. I'm 38, right? So all these years of stories that I've heard, of people that have gone through so many different things like this. And it's your mental health suffers. And when your mental health suffers, everything else suffers. And so, like, I want to make sure that, we're responding and not allowing ourselves to get so emotional to the point that we have breakdowns. I don't want us to have breakdowns. I want us to, get the information, get what we can do, and empower ourselves. I think it's so important that we remain empowered. And what better way to do that with hearing from the attorney who is kind of helping out with this case, and also all of his years of experience in the criminal justice system to kind of help us out. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can listen to this episode. This episode is an audio podcast as well for people that are joining me for the first time. You can find it and share this episode with other people, like, that you want to know about this, or kind of share. The more we share, the more knowledge we give. I think the better it'll be. And then also, I just think about all the other people who can benefit from this as well. So thank you guys so much for rocking out with me. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Let's keep supporting and letting him know that we got his back. And until next time, beautiful people, I'll talk to you later.
Smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now